Hey guys, this is Dr. Hub. In case you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe for updates. Disorders of the thought as well as the perception. So beginning with the disorder of the stream of thought. So we go on to discuss the stream of thought. So under this we look at the disorder of the tempo. So there is disorder of tempo. Disorder, and this is nothing but of the tempo. So under this it includes the flight of ideas. There is flight of ideas. So flight of ideas, there is continuous flow of rapid speech. So there is complete flow of rapid speech. So there is rapid speech that jumps from topic to topic. So rapid speech which jumps from topic to topic. So it's like telling three different things. So telling example is I like apples. It is raining. And the watch looks good. So there is no association between the thoughts. This is where the flight of ideas is present. So this is a disorder of that. Next is the retardation of thinking. So retardation of thinking means there is slow speed of speech and a prolonged latent period before the response. So there is slow speed of speech. So the slow speed of speech that jumps and a prolonged latent period before response. And a prolonged latent period. So it is like telling I went to the shop and telling that the shop was closed. So there is a pause between the sentence. This is nothing but the retardation of thinking. Next we look at the circumstantialities. So under the circumstantialities, there is an inclusion of the irrelevant details and going on in a roundabout manner. So this is by the inclusion. So there is inclusion of irrelevant details. So you have the inclusion of the irrelevant details and going on in a roundabout manner, and you go in a roundabout. So there is a roundabout manner is where how you do it. And their thought ultimately reaches the answer. So their thought, if you see the thought, it will ultimately reach the answer. So, in case you ask, how is your injury? Suppose a doctor is going to ask, how is the injury? How is your injury? So if you are going to ask, how is your injury? So the doctor, he gives very much irrelevant details, telling he woke up at this particular time. So he talks about his wake up. He woke up sometime, and then he can talk about he went for a walk and where he went for a walk and how was the place, and then he can talk about the nap he had. So a lot of irrelevant details is what, and ultimately he comes to the answer of how he fell, how he got injured, and the status of the injury. So this is about the circumstantialities. Next is the planned associations. is jumping from one word to the other, irrelevant rhyming word. So jumping from one word to another and it rhymes. Like telling, I like fan, I like to drink from can, and I like fan. So irrelevant rhyming words. Next is the disorder of continuity. So we look at the disorder, and this is of the continuity. So disorder of continuity, it includes the perseveration. So there is perseveration. So perseveration is a repetition of out of context words, phrases or ideas beyond the point of relevance. So you give the repetition of the context words, phrases, ideas beyond the point of relevance. Beyond the point, and this is of the relevance. So suppose someone asks you, what is your, where are you from? So if you answer New York, then how old are you? How old are you? And this again, you come up with the answer of New York. Then what time you sleep? What time do you sleep? Then again the answer given will be New York. So this is the perseveration, disorder of the continuity. Next, we move on to the thought blocking. So in the thought blocking, there is a sudden disruption of the thought or a break in the flow of ideas. So there will be a break in the flow of ideas, flow of the ideas. So there will be a complete silence, that is, you try to describe an event, that is, I went for a walk, I went for a walk, and then there will be extreme silence. So this is the thought blocking. Next we move on to the disorder of form of thought. So disorder of the form of the thought. So under the form of thought, first is we look at the tangentiality. Tangentiality. So this means that in response to a question, the patient gives a reply that is appropriate to the general topic but does not answer the question exactly. The speech moves away from the actual answer. So the speech, it is away from the answer. So if the doctor asks, did you have any sleep troubles? So the patient will tell that I sleep in my bed, now I'm sleeping on the couch or I'm sleeping on the floor. So there is no particular answer. So this answer will rotate, will revolve around the question, but it does not answer accurately. So this is tangentiality. Next is we look at the derailment. So under derailment, it is a breakdown in both the logical connection between the ideas and the overall sense of goal directness. So there is a logical connection, breakdown in the logical connection. So there is no logical connection. So there is no logical connection and the overall sense of goal directedness. So there is a overall sense of the goal directedness. So the word makes sentences, but the sentences do not make sense. So this is derailment. So a good example will be telling that why people don't understand why I played football in Africa during an earthquake. So this is known as a derailment. Next is we look at the neologisms. So neologisms is bringing in the new word that do not exist. So you form a new word, N for N, that is a formation of a new word. So neologism means the new word. So you can make up a new word and that will be neologisms. Next we move on to the desultory thoughts. So there is a desultory. So desultory thoughts. So desultory thoughts is the speech is grammatically correct. However, the sudden unrelated ideas force their way in from time to time. So you are telling that the speech is grammatical. So grammatically it is correct. But suddenly unrelated ideas force their way in from time to time. So it is like telling that the problem is that people never understand. So problem is that the people never understand. So the problem is that people never understand me, and the stomach feels like a empty bucket. So this is an example of the desultory thoughts. That is, the speech is grammatically correct, but there are certain unrelated ideas which occur from time to time. Then we look at the word salad or salad. The word salad is where the use of a mixture of unintelligent, meaningless words and sentences. So use a mixture. So there is a mixture, and the mixture is of unintelligible. So unintelligible, meaningless. So unintelligible, meaningless words. So there's meaningless words as well as the sentences. So example will be the tree bus. So you have random words. So you talk about trees, then you talk about cricket, then you talk about home, then you talk about tiger, then you talk about hammer, then you talk about paper. So it is totally unrelated and a mixture of these words. Next we look at the disorder of thought. So we'll try going faster. So the disorder of thought, so there is a thought insertion. The first one will be thought insertion. So let's look at only the important parts. The thought insertion, the thoughts are being inserted into the patient's mind, and they are able to recognize them as being foreign and coming from without any stimulus. So the thoughts are being inserted into the patient's mind. So it is inserted into the patient's mind, and they recognize them as being foreign and coming from without any stimulus. So they recognize them as foreign. So they recognize them as foreign and coming from without any stimulus. So it is no stimulus, without any stimulus. So it's like telling I have repeated thoughts. So like telling I have repeated thoughts of harming my neighbors, and I believe that absolute aliens are putting these ideas into the head at night. So this will be a thought of insertion, where you feel the thoughts are being inserted from an external source. Next will be the thought of withdrawal. So thought of withdrawal. So here in thought of withdrawal, the delusions that someone or something is removing from one's mind and the patient has no power over this. So there is someone or something is removing from one's mind. So you remove thoughts from one's mind, and the patient has no power over this, and they have absolutely no power. So there is no power over this. So it's like telling I have been losing memories and I feel that some police officers are behind this. So this will be a thought of withdrawal. Next, let's look at the thought of broadcasting. So thought of broadcasting is basically the beliefs of one's thoughts are quietly escaping from one's mind, and that other people might be able to access them and hear or see them. So what they feel is the patient or the person's thoughts appear on TV, internet or globally. TV, internet or globally. So this is the thought of broadcasting. Next we look at the thought of echo. Thought of the echo. The thought of echo is where the patient hears the echo of his thoughts in the form of the voice after which he has made the thought. So suppose you are making a thought of making pizza, so you hear the word again. You hear the word pizza again. This will be a thought of echo as a name suggests. Next is we look at the obsessions as well as the compulsions. The obsessions as well as the compulsions. So obsessions means the recurrent and persistent thoughts, impulses or images that cause a distress to oneself. So obsession means that there is a presence of persistent of the thought. So there's persistent thought and impulse and images that cause distress, and main thing is it causes distress. So it can be the fear of dirt, contamination, becoming ill, constant thoughts of certain number. So it can include a number, it can include the being due to the dirt, it can be include the illness, need of symmetry and exactness. One of the common, and then worrying whether it has been done right. So whether it's right or wrong, this is also a disorder. And then forbidden sexual or the religious thoughts. Next is we look at the compulsions. So what are present in compulsions? So under compulsions, it is a repetitive behavior or actions that a person feels driven to perform in response to an obsession. So it's driven to perform in terms of the obsession. So example will be so compulsion is a repetitive behaviors. So repetitive behaviors. So examples, to name a few, it can be washing hands, blinking eyes. So blink eyes. So blinking the eyes, washing hands. And to name other few, like counting items such as currency and checking to see if the doors are locked, arranging items in a certain way, and then requiring constant approval of people around them. So this can include the whatever comes under compulsions. Next is the disorder of the content of thought. So we look at the disorder of the content, and this is of the thought. So first is the phobias. So phobias means there is a fear of a certain object or situation, and typically it is a disproportion to the actual danger posed, and in which the sufferer goes to treat the length in avoiding it. So phobias, this is very common, and most of us will be already aware. So to name a few, the fear of spider. the fear of spider, these are very important terms. It is the arachnophobia. Fear of spider is the arachnophobia. Next is we look at the fear of gravity. So gravity fear is known as the barophobia. It is easy. Baro means pressure, right? So barophobia. Next is the fear of dogs. The fear of dogs is known as the cynophobia. Cynophobia. Then comes the fear of blood. The fear of blood is known as the hemophobia. And the fear of hospitals. The fear of the hospital. This is known as the nosocomephobia. 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 So then is the religious preoccupations. Next involves the religious preoccupations. So religious preoccupation means the thought involving the religious themes or the subject matters. So it revolves around the religious themes are involved as well as the subject matter is involved. So by telling, like I am getting instructions from God to perform a particular activity in a particular way. This will be like religious preoccupations. Next is the ideas of the hopelessness. So ideas of hopelessness. So this is the thoughts of complete despair where the patient strongly believes that his circumstances will never get better for him. So it is like being a very negative or a pessimist, that whatever things you are trying to do, it will never happen. So it is like telling, I am never going to win this football match, no matter how hard I practice. So this will be an example of the ideas of hopelessness. Next is we move on to the antisocial urges. Antisocial. So antisocial urges means the thought of indulging in some behaviors or actions that harm or lack the considerations for the well-being of others. So there is thoughts of indulging in some behaviors. So you indulge in some behavior, and this behavior it harms or lacks the considerations for the others' well-being. So it harms or it causes a lack of consideration to the others. Lack of consideration. So then comes, we look at the D. So the example here will be like going to a bank and robbing. So this will be a very antisocial urge. Next we look at the derealization. So derealization means that the alteration of the perception or experience of the external world than what seems that seems unreal. So alteration of the actual world is real. So the world and everything around it is nothing but a dream. So like considering that everything is a dream is a realization. Next we look at the depersonalization. So what is depersonalization? Depersonalization is a feeling as if one is disconnected from the reality. Means one is disconnected. So disconnected from the reality. Person is disconnected from the reality, feeling that it is detached from one's own thoughts and own physical body. So it is detached from one's own thoughts. So it is detached from one's own thoughts as well as one's own physical body. Sometimes drift into a dream-like state where I losing the contact with my own body. This is known as a depersonalization. Lastly, we move on to the delusions. So delusion is nothing but a false belief that a strongly held and unchangeable beliefs and that are not consistent with the personal education, social and cultural background. then comes the impossibility or the falsity of the content. So you are telling it is impossible. So there is impossibility or the falsity. There is falsity of the content. So this is implausible, bizarre or the patently untrue. So you are telling it is impossible or falsity of the consent. So it is implausible. Lastly, we move on to the disorders of the perception. So there is disorder of the perception. So here there is illusion. We look at illusion. So illusion means there is a misinterpretation of the real external stimuli. So there is misinterpretation, and this will be of the real external stimuli. Real external stimuli. Next is we move on to the hallucination. Hallucination means a false sensory perception external. So you have a false sensory perception, and this will be considered external. Next is a pseudo hallucination. So what is meant by pseudo hallucination? So this means that there is a false sensory perception from within and having an insight. So there is a false sensory perception. So false sensory perception is present from within and having an insight. So false sensory perception is present and having an insight. To learn and grow daily like this, please do subscribe.